I've learned a lot over the 4 decades of health and fitness and being in the trenches with the greatest in the world. And one of those things I've learned a lot more about and how to build better muscle is nutrition and how it has changed over the decades. And that's why I have the Titan meal plan for you guys out there that are confused about nutrition. I'm gonna set you straight. Get a hold of me today. The link will be in the comments down below for you guys. Everybody, get over to the Titan meal plan, and I'll see you in the Titan crew where I will fine tune any difficulties that you're having. This is the Mike O'Hearn Show here on Generation Iron, and I have Big Johnny over to the right. We got Batman over to the left. And my boy Matt Wenning.
What's up, dog?
Don't let him hang. I can bitch it. And I can tell you, similarities from us, and I think that's one of the things I love about you, is that when we were so young and winning in high school, already setting and beating men, as high school powerlifters competing against men, we're already that size. We're already these big monsters. You know, like we said, we're both 272 at one point in high school. And wasn't the 272 high school, you think. It's, we were lifting enormous weight, beating men in powerlifting. But you continued on. And how many degrees do you have?
I got my bachelor's and then my master's in biomechanics from, at that time, the hardest school in the world for biomechanics. Dr. Kramer, Dr. Costal, guys that were the innovators of strength conditioning in America. Those guys were my professors coming up. So the schoolwork was no game show.
And I always talk about this, about the circle that you're around at that age. I was with Jeff Magruder, Doyle Kennedy, Doug Furness, Ed Cohn would come up there. And I'm like looking back going, wow, I was lucky.
I was around Louis Simmons, Eddie Cohen, guys that were local but already American record holders. The guy that taught me how to bench, Tim Smith, was a 500-pound wall bencher at 181 body weight in 1984. The other guy was a deadlifter, Jim Dawson, pulled 744 in 1970. Nobody had pulled 800 yet. So these guys were like local legends that were 3 separate generations. And they see me walking in thinking I'm in high school, and I'm 12 and a half years old. Because I'm already like 165 pounds. My cousin, actually, some of that's genetic. My cousin played offensive tackle at Ohio State. He was 6'6", 360 as a senior.
Now, the reason I'm saying this is we had maybe good genetics. All right. Maybe we loved it. We had the work ethic. But we were around the right people, because you just named some people, and it's like the people I was around, again, same thing. Jeff Magruder, first 242er to do 600 bench, and Doyle Kennedy did 1,000. And what can we teach these kids today? I would like to do this. We've been here, we've all done these sports, we've all done these workouts, and we've established incredible long careers for all of us. What could they learn? And who should they be around? And how do they, as social media is now gold, they can get to you, they can get to me. How should they siphon through that to find out, hey, the proper way to live, the proper way to do things?
There's what I call 3 pillars. You have the first one that we all, as meatheads, put as first, but it's probably third, which is how strong are you right now? The next one is what's your education level? And the third one, which in my opinion is most important, is how long were you able to sustain that strength? You might be a genetic freak, but if your training methods only allow you to last for 1 to 3 years, you don't know fucking anything. But if you can be good for a decade or 15 or 20 years, or in my case, I was top 5 in the world for 26 years, that has some merit, because you not only need to know when to throttle up, you got to know when to throttle back.
So
you got to know when
I got to stop you for a second, because I think this is brilliant on the aspect of a lot of the discussions have been the long road. And I love the fact that he said that because of the fact that this is supposed to be about life, and you're supposed to be strong forever, or as long as you possibly can be. You're not this 1 year pony that's 1 to 3 years. Because then again, I agree.
That's where a lot of guys get attracted to that, is they see somebody that might be a genetic freak comes up. He's an animal. It doesn't matter if it's bodybuilding or powerlifting or strongman. But then all of a sudden, year 2, year 3, year 5 comes on, and now they're plagued with injuries. They're all f***ed up, and they can't perform anymore. And underneath the table, their blood work's atrocious. So that's why we're seeing so many of the guys. I think currently we see so many guys passing away with horrible health issues. Is that what are they putting first? That 3 pillar they're putting. How strong are they, or how big are
Why
they
wasn't
first?
one of the 3 first the drugs?
Yeah, and the drugs are a whole nother thing. I mean, you have to build.
Isn't that number 1? Because they're going to say it's number 1.
Well, it's actually probably number 9. I mean, if you want to look at it and base it on, because drugs in and of itself don't do as much if you don't have a good natural base. I didn't have to take anything until I was 25. I was already squatting almost 1,000 pounds, was bench pressing well into the 6s, and developed in 744 before I touched my first drug. And how I did it was, my mom was a nurse practitioner. She sent me to an endocrinologist, and I made all of those numbers with a 325 testosterone level. How the f is that possible?
If you are confused about training, do not worry. That's what the Titan training plan is for. For you guys to subscribe to this plan, you also get the additional coaching from me in the Titan private group. Get in there today, and I cannot wait to start working with you and making your dreams come true. Let's get back to the show.
Yeah, and the doctor comes back in, he goes, how in the living are you this strong with this test level? And I go, I don't know, but I'm not recovering very well. So I just won nationals and broke every American record in powerlifting at my age category, was already ranked in the open. And then I took TRT level dosages where I was just high natural. And then squat went to 1,000 like that, but I was already squatting 920. So I only ever saw, and this is just my personal opinion, I only ever saw a 10% increase in what it did for me in drugs. Do you want that 10% to be 225 to 250 or 900 to 1,000? But the 900's got to come first and put in the work without the supplementation before that happens, because what are you sponging with that extra testosterone?
Let me stop you for a second here, because this goes right over to Johnny, who is the CEO of Titan Medical, and it goes back to the point of when you have a discussion with one of your specialists, first thing they say is, how's your nutrition?
All right.
How's your sleep? How's your recovery? How are you training? Are you getting in there? And I love the fact that a company that does HRT first sets you up with the same statements that you said.
Yeah.
How is your training? How is your nutrition?
Yeah, full spectrum.
Sleep, water.
Well, and that was one bringing the sleep into play is my biggest advantage over all of my competition for all those years is that I was sleeping 10 and a half to 11 hours a day to do those numbers. That was my real secret, is I was a very good sleeper. I mean, even like my mom could tell you as a kid, like I didn't want to stay up after 9 o'clock. I liked to get up around 7. So even as a kid, I was sleeping from 9 to 7, like every day. Even in the phases where people will stay up till 2, 3 in the morning when you're 14, I didn't have that because I was already training. And I knew that the next day, if I didn't sleep, Tim and Dawson and those guys were gonna be like, what the f did you do last night, asshole?
Yeah.
You know, we're gonna waste our time on somebody that's not gonna take this serious. And that had more drive to me than my friends, because all those people at that time, I don't even f talk to anymore. But I still talk to Dawson and Timmy, you know what I mean? And so I was young enough, mature-wise, to know that I had something special, even if it was just their attention. I didn't know I had the genetics at that time, but I knew that I had their attention. And that is what drove me every day to want to go to the facility and train. And I wanted to give them as close to 100% as I could every day, because I felt like they were investing in me. You know, they didn't have to take their time to teach me all that. You know what I mean?
I got a question, like a base level question about deadlifting.
Sure.
From a champion deadlifters, you see a lot of people in the gym now deadlifting. From a biomechanics standpoint, understanding the human body and how the levers work. Is the risk-reward ratio there for people to be deadlifting as much as they are today? I stood up on cardio and I look down at people deadlifting and they're butchering it. They're trying to pull more weight than they should. Maybe 135, just stick with it, get your form right.
Well, I think that's a good question, and I think the question has a yes and no answer. The deadlift is a viable exercise for everyone if you have proper coaching. If you don't have somebody to tell you when to stop and you're not smart enough to listen, the deadlift is the worst thing that you can do. Next to Olympic lifting, just because of the amount of technique involved in that. But if you can't deadlift, you can't do Olympic lifts either. So it's a stepping stone to a lot of other places. But as we both know, for most people, like Ronnie Coleman, a lot of the old time bodybuilders, none of them got the spinal erectors and the glutes and the hamstring definition and size without being able to deadlift an extreme amount of weights. And most of the old timers that did it, they're not beat up. It's the guys that push too hard too fast, and they don't have what we call, the Russians figured out about 60 years ago, you have TFM and CFM. I'll explain that real quick. TFM is training force maximum. That is what can you do in any lift that is technically sound. The CFM is what everybody focuses on, which is competition force maximum. That's like you come out there and go, hey Matt, I used to be a really good lifter. How much can you deadlift today? And I don't know. I'll give you 10 grand to pull what you can pull. That's a CFM, right? It gets 10 grand on the floor. But my point being is most people are doing that just to show off to two of their friends, creating this cumulative mileage on their spine without the proper technique. And training maximums should be always in light and always be an advantage to competition force maximums. And really, you shouldn't even touch competition force maximums until you've had at least 6 to 8 years of training force maximums as a developing tool to reach that.
See, nobody's doing that.
No.
In the
So,
gyms.
But that's what we're doing.
The first time
but that's
I-
what we do.
Yeah.
And so when you don't see me maxing, you see me doing a percentage of what it is and capable
Well,
of.
you, because you understand that, but the average Joe in the gym is who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And I see pulling weights, and their
Yeah.
back is just curved, and I'm like,
Yeah.
no, I want to see.
Well,
Because I want to answer your question. You said, is deadlifts risk worth reward? There's no such thing. All lifts are important, I believe.
Yeah.
But the problem is, like you said,
It's the
it
environment.
goes back to Arthur Jones. All lifts are dangerous. And they're the most amazing things if done professionally and right.
Mhm.
And so he keeps saying this over and over again. If you got the right coach,
Yeah.
if you're doing it correctly. Deadlifts are amazing. And I believe that deadlifts and squats is the reason, and behind the neck shoulder press, and the exercises that I do that got us
the base.
out of high school, and I still do, are what keeps me healthy.
Sure.
But now, it took time to get there. Like you said, it takes time. It takes time.
When have you ever seen a guy like you or me do something with improper technique? It's not wired in us to do that.
Well,
But-
you couldn't.
It's the time. It's that people don't have that refractory period time scale to go, hey, I'm not really ready to do this at a maximum level for 5 to 6 years. They're thinking, well, I watched my best friend on Instagram or somebody I'm following, and we have a lot of professionals fighting on whether your spine should go into flexion or it should not. But all the top lifters in the world tell you no. And all the guys that have been around for 30, 40 years tell you no. But then you got some jackass with a PhD that's never lifted any real weights telling them, oh, it's perfectly safe. If the body can bend that way, then it's meant to do that. Are you fucking kidding me? You know what I mean? And I'm just like, what the f-? Because I've never had a back problem, ever. Never had a knee problem. I mean, anytime I'll ride my motorcycle all the way to California to see him, get off my bike and squat with his asshole.
It's that time again to get my blood work done to see where my numbers are. Again, the one big thing for me is I'm keeping track of it. It's so precise. I competed in bodybuilding and powerlifting and martial arts, but that was all over decades ago. And so how can I continue to keep this physique and be this strong at this stage? And so that is by optimizing my health with Titan Medical. It all stems from one thing: your blood work, what's going on inside of you. And that's the main thing that I'm focused about, is see how I can continue to not just be in the game. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be a weekend warrior. I don't want to say you got a dad bod. I want to be the pinnacle of the health and fitness industry decades after I competed. And I've always said this too. You got so many of these guys that were with me in the 80s and 90s, and they keep putting the pictures up from the 80s and 90s. I don't want to be that guy. I like the fact that I can still put up pictures of me today, even though I won the universe back in the 90s. That's the goal for me. I don't know what your goal is, but I can tell you this. I know you want to live, and I know you want to live your best life. And that starts with blood work. Over at Titan Medical, start today.
if you guys are at home and you're watching this and you're going, wait a minute, you just don't go in and lift?
Right.
No, it's
think
like
that-
anything that you do. When it goes to baseball, I told you who I grew up with when it came to baseball. I step in, and Cody Webster's throwing this thing at my head, and I'm like, okay, I'm out. But it just showed me the level I was at such a young age. Lifting's no different.
No.
You walk into a gym, I'm going to just jump down and do 225, 315 on the bench. Great. You're a moron.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It's the basic stuff, and it's like we just had Mark Bell up with us, and it was a great discussion as well, because a power lifter you see rarely hit those huge numbers in fatigue. Rarely. A couple times a year. Where you see bodybuilders all the time fatiguing and all the time destroying themselves and stuff. And it's like, you wonder why powerlifters go till 70 and 80 years old and still lifting heavy weights, where bodybuilders have such a short lifespan.
Well, and it's the type of population that it attracts. I mean, the first time I met Ed Cohen, he watched me squat 700 as a teenager. He said, man, if you can hold on for 5 or 6 more years, you'll squat 800. I did it in 3. But the point being, I was like, why did you tell me that? And he goes, because I wanted to see if you were in it for the long haul. I wasn't going to help you if you were just going to be some shooting star that thought he was a badass.
Stop. Big Show. Paul. Remember the story Paul said? So, Big Show, a wrestler, and this is the same thing. And I just love the fact of how he said the story here. He said he was wrestling, started out, and he went up to, I think it was The Undertaker, and he goes, I want to get his point of view on this. I want to see what he thought of me, and I'm the new guy, and here I am. Big Show walks up and says, hey, how'd you think that match did? What do you think I should work on? And Undertaker says, you should quit. You should quit. So the testing of what Eddie did, that went over everybody's head, I'm sorry. His point was, are you in this?
Yep.
Don't ask me, kid.
Yeah.
It's your first day. Shut up. In a sense. And him saying that it's going to take you 5 years.
Yeah. And for me,
I
enjoy, this gets into a different thought process, but I enjoyed the training process. The competition was just the icing on the cake. But I think this generation looks at the competitions as their motivation. My motivation is to train smart and make it to the competition, because I know I can win when I get there, but I got to get there healthy, and I got to get there with perfect technique if I want those big numbers that people tend to remember, and that's something that I think is missing in this particular
You and I
generation.
had that at such a young age when it came to lifting.
Well, nobody ever told me I was going to be the best in the world at 13 years old. I never had that mindset. I just wanted to go in and impress the guys that were teaching me when I was a kid.
So what did we learn then that we could teach them now?
Basically, that you need to be around other people that have been where you want to be and have done it at a strategic, long-term level, that aren't talking about the old days and can't still show you physically, but they can still do it. They go, oh, well, I was a real badass back in the 80s, but I blew off both my elbows and my shoulders are well, that automatically tells you that their training style is probably not really smart.